Black women can't see that they're the punchline of a cruel joke. Sad. Just sad. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this all-new Spinsterella story. Pre-order your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. A 12-foot tall statue of a black woman has been erected in Times Square to get people to reflect on greater cultural diversity.
A new statue in Times Square we're told, turning heads. It's making people not only stop and stare, but also reflect. A rare feat in the middle of one of the busiest places in the world. Zinnia Maldonado shows us why.
At 12 feet tall, in the middle of Times Square, stands a bronze sculpture of a young woman.
It's instantly stood out. It's powerful.
It's so tall and big.
The sculpture, created by artist Thomas Price, was unveiled at Duffy Square last week, and in just a matter of days, it has stopped hundreds in their tracks. Who is she? Well, technically, she's whoever you want her to be.
Me being a plus-size black woman, I kind of looking at it was just like, oh, I wonder what me as a small child would have thought looking at something like that. Representation.
The piece is part of a series called Grounded in the Stars, which Gene Cooney, director of Times Square Art, says confronts preconceived notions of identity and representation.
To have this work here is making a statement, potentially asking questions about what we value as a city, as a society, and hopefully it's a tribute to our shared humanity.
Tourists and New Yorkers we spoke with expressed different interpretations of what she represents to them.
It's a plus-size woman. I'm a plus-size man. I'm African American. It's the African American woman statue. So just seeing another piece for me to stop and just have a moment with was very powerful.
If you look at the eyes, it's looking straight at something. It's focused. It's purposeful.
The sculpture proves to be a well-liked juxtaposition placed among the more traditional statues in Times Square, which is the goal, according to officials, of placing said artwork in such a significant area.
Coming from a person of color background as well, it's really nice to see something come across as like this everyday person that looks a little bit out of place. But I also think that's because of where we are standing. It might not look out of place if everything in our surrounding reflected everyday life more to us.
From Times Square, Zinnia Maldonado, CBS News, New York.
Now, according to reports, Times Square Arts put up a temporary display of a statue of a 12-foot tall black woman who is obese and dressed in casual clothes in an effort to get people to reflect on so-called greater cultural diversity. Now, this statue by artist Thomas J. Price is supposed to be a statue made to be presenting so-called representation, and is supposed to go out here and amplify traditionally marginalized bodies on a monumental scale, because the statues in Times Square of white men were ones that this guy wanted to go out here and counter by presenting a statue of a 12-foot tall black woman dressed in casual clothing. Now, I'm really scratching my head regarding this 12-foot tall statue of a black woman, because it's looking to me like the ideal that this artist Thomas J. Price has of black women really is not something that's going to create people to reflect on a greater cultural diversity, because what he's doing with this statue is basically breathing brand new life into old stereotypes about black women that come from the antebellum South. Now, passively, Thomas J. Price is presenting his ideal of a counter to all of the statues of prominent white men in Times Square, but aggressively what he's doing is going out here and presenting an image of black women that makes a mockery of black women, and presents a mockery of black women that feeds into the old caricatures of the mammy and the images that white supremacy wants to represent as the ideal of a black woman. That's what I see in this statue of this 12-foot 12-foot statue of this obese black woman, I see it no different than a statue of Aunt Jemima or any of the Mammy caricatures, and that's what I see being repackaged here as related to things, and I don't see how it's going to reflect on the human condition and cultural diversity when it's just basically another presentation of anti-black racism, another presentation of anti-black racism repackaged to make mockery of black women who will go out here and, because they seek white acceptance, will be spellbound to believe that this is representation, when in actuality it's another mockery of black women on the level of the Hottentot Venus. Now, back in the day, there was this woman, Sarah Bartman, who was basically put on display for having a large backside and was presented as this Hottentot Venus. And sadly, because many black people were slaves at the time and had low self-esteem, they thought that this was something that was positive, but it actually was making a mockery of this black woman. It was making a mockery of this black woman because we were not getting an idealized image of a black woman, but an image of a black woman that was basically put there to be a freak show and make a mockery of black women. And that's what I see when I look at this statue. I look at the statue of an obese black woman. Again, this was made to be a representation to counter the images of white men, and that's where I see the racism that goes with this statue. Now, they say that this was a subtle nod at Michelangelo's David and was again made to counter white men. And I have to ask the critical question, why do you need to have an image of a black woman to counter the image of white men? Critical question I have to ask the people like this artist, Thomas J. Price, and the Times Square Arts Association. Why do you need to have a statue of an obese black woman be a counter to white men as part of a so-called series as related to man? I mean, wouldn't the counter to those white men be a statue of a heterosexual black man to be a counter to white masculinity? But the answer to that question, as I see it, is that white supremacy doesn't want to put up an image to counter the image of the white man with a black man, because the image of black masculinity is very strong and can be a complete contrast that shows a greater strength as related to masculinity. So what they do is passively go out here and present you this image of a black woman as the counter to white men, while aggressively taking a shot at that black woman by saying that, but as she is obese, she is masculine. And sadly, as many people look at this art, don't see how this art fits within the narrative of white supremacy and its anti-black racism and an intergenerational mockery of black women that goes all the way back to the antebellum South. Because that's what's happening here, is what this artist Thomas J. Price, as I see it, is doing, is making a mockery of black women, making a complete mockery of black women by presenting us this image of this obese, masculine-looking black woman as the ideal, as his ideal, when in actuality we never get to see the real image of a slim, attractive black woman. I find it very interesting that this artist, again, his ideal of black women is this big, fat, obese, masculine, aggressive-looking black woman dressed in a t-shirt and some yoga pants with some braids on her head. I mean, this is basically a stereotype being presented to black women, and we don't get an image of a sister looking slim, looking fine, and again, being an ideal. No, we don't get that image presented in Times Square, because what they want to present in Times Square is anti-black racism straight in your face in a passive-aggressive way. And many people, it will fly over their heads that they're being assaulted. That's the sad part about this whole story, is that you got black women, it'll fly over their heads that they're being mocked and being made fun of in this picture, the same way Sarah Bartman, the Hottentot Venus, was basically being mocked. And they're saying, oh, this is all about a takeover of Times Square that will, again, foreground the intrinsic value of the individual and amplifying traditionally marginalized bodies on a monumental scale. Well, the most marginalized body I see in America is the slim, attractive black woman. The slim, attractive, fit black woman is one of the most marginalized images I see in media. I don't really get to see many slim, attractive, fit black women looking fine in these days. I mean, 40 years ago, I used to see it, but I used to see it because black men like Bill Cosby and black men like many others, like Spike Lee and others, would go out here and present me those fine black women. But when it comes down to the white media loves seeing a certain type of black women. Ever since the days of the antebellum South and slavery, they want to see the big, fat, obese black woman because that's what makes white women feel comfortable. White women feel comfortable when they see an obese black woman because they know socially she won't be able to compete against them in the social marketplace. They know she won't be able to go out here and attract the attention of men in her community and men in her own community because most men will have no regard for her and basically she will become invisible. They know that she is out here again thinking that she's fine when she's basically being forgotten by quality men. This is why 70% of black women are single, and that's what's happening here with this statue. This statue basically makes a mockery of black women, no different than the Hottentot Venus, but sadly many black women are so spellbound and desperate for attention and white acceptance they can't see how they're being insulted by this statue in Times Square. Again, a statue meant to be a counter to men, counter to white men. Again, you have a statue that's supposed to be a counter to a white man, and they're saying the counter to a white man is not a black man. They're saying that the counter to a white man is a black woman, and that's an insult that flies over the heads of many black women who are just desperate for attention and approval in the system of white supremacy, and some are, sadly, because they're spellbound, flattered by that whole insult, because they think, oh, white people are paying attention to me, so I'll fit myself into a box that I think is acceptable to white people, a box that I think is going to get me their approval, but that box is again one where you don't see where you're the punchline of a very cruel joke. That's what's being presented here in this 12-foot tall statue of this black woman dressed in casual clothing. Now, if you look at the statues in Times Square, they are statues of prominent men dressed in business suits, prominent men who have made accomplishments. I mean, prominent white men who have gone out here and again gained all sorts of successes. But the image that this guy wants to present is of the just ghetto black woman, the ghetto black woman who basically is not dressed in a way that shows that she's respectable and shows that she needs to be regarded. You don't get a picture of a slim, feminine black woman. No, you get a masculinized image of black women, and that's what really makes my blood boil, because this isn't art. No, this isn't art that's amplifying traditionally marginalized bodies on a monumental scale. It's just making the same old mockery of black women, making the same old mockery of black women that was done with images of the mammy caricature, which is again was an exaggerated image of black women, and an exaggerated image to say, oh, this black woman is unattractive, this black woman is obese, this black woman is undesirable, and is completely undesirable to the white woman, when in actuality, if you go back to the days of Jim Crow, many of the maids were actually slim. Many of the maids were slim, and they were very attractive because they were not allowed to eat the food from the slave master's table. No, they were allowed to cook the food, but they were not allowed to eat it. But what happened with these stereotypes, what they want to do is, again, use them to go out here and socially engineer these ideas in the minds of black people by saying, oh, we want to, again, make this images of white that we consider acceptable to white people by getting you to fit yourself in these boxes, by saying, oh, if you want to be a black woman who's an ideal in society, you have to be this obese black woman. And again, want this obese black woman to be the counter to the white man, because in white supremacy's order, the black woman is the one who has the power of a man and was given that power by white supremacy when they wanted to, again, go out here and destroy the black family, wanted to destroy the black family by saying this black man will not be in a leadership position, will not be in a position of power. No, we're going to give that to the black woman to emasculate that black man, take away his ability to be the leader and head of God's order, take away his ability to do God's work on earth. That's what these white supremacists want to do, because they want the black woman to adopt the religion of white supremacy and be transformed into the image and ideal that they want her to be, not be transformed into the image and ideal that Christ wants us to be. Because when you go out and give your life to Christ, Christ remakes you into his image. And that's what these people don't want you to do, and again want to make these black women buy into this idea. That's what's being done here with this Grounded in the Stars, which is basically another piece of art that basically shows that the road they want to take black people is on the road to hell. And again, their intentions is to make mockery of the black woman, make fun of her right in front of her face, because they don't think she's smart enough to see that they're setting her up for this cruel joke, a cruel joke that basically has its history in the Hottentot Venus from, I believe, the 18th century, and has been going on since the 18th century with the Hottentot Venus to the mammy, to the image of the feminist black woman. All of it is just one big cruel joke, and sadly, many black women just are so desperate for attention due to their low self-esteem. They'll think, oh, this is an accomplishment that they put a temporary statue of you up in Times Square, but that statue isn't an idealized image of you. No, and again, the one image we don't get to see in society are the images of those slim fit sisters, who have everything put together. We don't get to see those sisters, and that's why we have to take control of our own image, take control of our image, take control of our story, because every narrative they present about us in their art and their literature is anti-black, and all of their images all fit one narrative meant to make a mockery of black women. And sadly, many won't see that they are the punchline of one of the cruelest jokes that has been going on for centuries in history. Now, if you want to see positive images of slim, fit, attractive black women, you can go over to the SJS Direct imprint on Amazon.com, and there I have lots of great books of slim, fit, attractive black women, like those in the Isis series, those in the Esteem series, those in the Spinsterella series, and my black sorority novel, The Thetas, or my black vampire novel, Eternal Night. And I have images of beautiful black women that are presenting an idealized image of what black women really are. Again, images that come from our history as black people, because as black people, we went out here and looked to counter these stereotypes with human types. That was an whole art exhibit I went to at the Schomburg that showed me, again, why we need to take control of our image. And part of me taking control of our image is presenting us with those attractive black women, to show black women what they can aspire to be and not look to fit themselves in a box created by white supremacy. And you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me go out here and take pieces of art like this to the barbecue and talk about how it misrepresents black women, you can continue to help me to stay on the air by dropping a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteem Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteem Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers. John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Boule in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.